atWork Australia would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and pay our respect to elders past and present. This podcast is being recorded in the southwest and Western Australia, which is land of the Noongar people. We'd also like to pay our respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands from wherever you may be listening from. Hello and welcome to another episode of Candid Conversations with Shaun. In this episode, I speak with Natalie, the CEO for Dress for Success Western Australia. She tells me all about their wonderful organisation and how they support women to be able to feel their best and to be able to feel confident when they're going for an interview, starting a new job, or they're attending another significant event throughout their life. Had a great conversation with Natalie and I really hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for agreeing to come along today and have a chat about Dress for Success and the organisation and the wonderful services that you do provide.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
First of all, I'd like a big congratulations to you. I've recently read on the Dress for Success website that you've recently been appointed to the CEO. So how are you enjoying the role so far?
It's fantastic. I'm 6 weeks in, so I'm getting my head around it, but it's a great little team and some of the volunteers that we've got working with us are just absolutely awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. Glad to hear you've been enjoying the first few weeks. And before we get talking about Dress for Success, do you mind if we ask you a few questions to get to know you a little bit more first?
Yeah, sure.
Can you explain to me a bit about your career journey and have you always pursued a career path where you've been able to support others?
So I started my career as a graduate in state government working for the Department of Justice. I spent 15 years there working across policy and projects, building prisons, working in the rehabilitation and reintegration space. So that for me was really cutting my teeth on the issues surrounding some people who are really facing some solid barriers in our society, both economically and socially. I think that there came a time where I realised that my want to change the world that I had as a child probably wasn't going to happen in a safe government job. So I made a decision to exit government and go and work in the private sector out at one of the WA's prisons. So I spent 4 years working up at Acacia Prison as the Assistant Director of Rehabilitation and Reintegration. It was an amazing job, having had one foot in the sort of strategic systemic issues surrounding rehabilitation and reintegration, meeting with ministers and talking with government. And then the next day I'd be sitting on a park bench with one of the prisoners talking to him about the kinds of things he might like to do down in the education block. So spanning those two worlds, it was a thing that I really loved about that job. I think there came a time when I left Acacia that I thought I can't spend my whole career in justice and corrections. So I moved into the community housing sector. So I worked for Housing Choices Australia, and I kind of remember at the time, wow, after 15 years in justice and corrections, housing's going to be a bit of a doddle, right? And then we had a housing crisis. So I spent 6 years working with them, and really that was for me about making housing sustainable and affordable and available for everybody. As an organisation, Housing Choices really worked hard to keep people housed, and there's a lot of people in community housing that, aside from the economic challenges that led them to be in community housing, have got a lot of other stuff on their plate too, which sometimes makes it hard for them to sustain their housing. So I had a team of really dedicated people working really hard to make sure that we weren't contributing to the homelessness problem that we've got in this nation, but that we were part of the solution. And then about 6 months ago, I started thinking, well, this has been 6 years now doing this. What else can I find that really is aligned with my purpose, which is really about helping people who are facing socioeconomic challenges? And this kind of unicorn that is the CEO of Dress for Success flew past. And so I jumped at it. As being an organisation that's smaller, the scale's very, very different, but still very, very much aligned with my purpose.
Just by listening to the jobs you've worked in the past, I think we could probably record a podcast on some of the stories you'd be able to tell. It must have been quite interesting working within the prisons and supporting the homeless as well. I know that homelessness is quite a pressing issue at the moment, so I imagine many stories you could share.
Yeah, I'd have some doozies, that's for sure.
And where does your passion from supporting others come from? You mentioned as a little kid you sort of had a dream to save the world. Has it always been something you've been passionate about, supporting other people?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've just always had a really keen recognition that I have a lot of privilege, and my way of making sure that I'm passing that forward is to work in industries where I think I'm certainly not here for the money, but to work in industries where I can spend my day trying to change systems and realign thinking about how society thinks about and treats people who haven't always had the privileges that I've had. I'm not sure why. I think maybe Tracy Chapman had a bit to do with it when I was young. I used to listen to a lot of kind of music like that had moved me. It led me to go to university and study sociology. So there's probably a lot that I've forgotten that I studied in sociology that would have had an impact, I imagine, a lasting impact.
Yeah, okay. Doesn't really matter what the reason is. It's just important that there's people out you that do have the drive and the want to be able to support others. So thank you for the contributions that you are making. And now I know I've been with atWork Australia for 6 years now, and at many of the events that we've hosted, I've seen the Dress for Success team there promoting your organisation. Are you able to tell us about Dress for Success and the services they do provide?
Sure. So Dress for Success Western Australia is the Western Australian affiliate of an international brand. It's been running for over 30 years, and really the purpose behind the organisation is to support women into or back into the workforce. So that's recognising that women face a whole bunch of barriers to entering and re-entering the workforce, and providing this really women-centred and safe space for them to do that is really what we're all about. So we do styling and we do career programs that assist with interview skills and CV writing, and I guess kind of talking through those barriers where people might not realise that that's the barrier that they're facing, but just by having the conversation about it, you can start to put some strategies in place. So our styling sessions are about an hour and a half, all volunteer run. So the volunteers will spend an hour and a half with a woman, talking her through what makes her feel good about herself, what clothes she's comfortable in, what kind of look she's going for, and also pitched with what works for an interview as well. So I think where most job providers do a lot of really good and hard work, where we're doing is really leaning into that space, because the outcome that we want is that a woman feels confident when they walk into an interview. We do measure whether or not women get a job, but what we really want to measure is that they're confident enough to walk into an interview and feel like the bomb, feel like they've got half a shot at getting this, rather than walking in feeling unconfident and uncomfortable and kind of already resigning themselves to the fact that they don't have a chance at this. So that's really what we're punching at. It's hard to measure. So that's one of our constant challenges about how we measure that change in the way a person feels about themselves when they walk into an important event. In addition to interviews, that we also dress women for other really important events in their life, and that could be anything from a parent-teacher interview or a child's graduation, just things that are important to people and they want to feel good about themselves when they go into it, but they don't have either the skills or the resources to do that.
And like you say, it's a big part of that is building confidence. When you do go for the interview, you're not feeling confident within yourself, and a lot of your confidence does come from what you're wearing and how you're feeling within yourself. You're not going to be able to put your best foot forward. And I guess, as you were saying, it's hard to measure. Not many people secure the first interview they go for. So it might be the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So it can take time to get to the job that you're pursuing.
Yeah, and you're right. If you don't think you stand a chance, then you're pretty much dead in the water, aren't you?
I guess it's these small little changes that you can add to people's lives and support them to be able to take that next step.
Yeah.
And how do they engage with First Steps to Success? Are they referred? Are they referred from providers, or do they just walk in off the streets?
So generally referred from job agencies. So that's how we get the majority of our referrals. And I think that the partnership between us and job agencies is really critical, and it's really a thing that I want to grow, because job agencies are doing their bit of the big work. But I think the point of difference that we've got is when agencies can see that there's a woman sitting in front of them that could do with that bit of one-to-one support and that really personalised approach that we get, referring into us is what we'd like to see more of. We get referrals from not-for-profit organisations, from some of the women's refuges. About 38% of our clients report having been victims of family and domestic violence. And that's, anyone who's listened to the news at all over the last 12 months is just a problem that won't go away. So the safe place that we provide there really does acknowledge that people are bringing a whole bunch of trauma in with them, and how we interact with them at any point during our journey with them as a client. It's important for us to be trauma informed in our approach.
Yeah, because that was going to be another one of my questions. Probably I might be assuming that quite often the women that you do support, they're probably most likely facing significant other challenges within their life, and that's why they found themselves having to reach out to a service like yourself to get support.
Yeah. Look, like I said, 38% have self-reported that they've experienced family and domestic violence. So that's not even counting the ones that don't want to tick that box. A lot of women exiting prison. So we have a bit of a partnership with Boronia Prison and the women's prisons in this state, because coming out of prison is a massive barrier to employment. And that's about having a prison's background. That's about being able to confidently have the conversation with an employer where you need to disclose your conviction, because hiding it isn't going to work because everyone needs a police clearance. But being able to confidently have that conversation and say, yes, I have spent time in prison, but I'm here now, I'm turning up, it's time for a change, really important. So we can help women with that. We see a lot of older women who have been out of the workforce for a long time and just simply don't know how to do it. And for anyone, for example, for anyone who's ever worked for government, trying to figure out the government recruitment and interview process is just crazy. When you go for an interview and you don't hear anything back for a month, that's fine. That doesn't mean you haven't got the job. Government's just pretty slow. It's a big machine and it takes a while for them to churn through their processes. I think we have a lot of women from non-English speaking backgrounds come through, and we know that culture and race is another big barrier to employment. So being able to give women strategies and skills to be able to manage that is important. And look, I think on the proactive side, I was reading the 2024 Status of Women report card, and there's still a gender pay cap of 19% out there. So we kind of want to make a dent in we want to be part of making a dent in that.
And I guess the first way to be able to make a dent in that is by getting women in the workforce.
And by thinking that you can, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you don't believe in if you can walk in confident, believing in yourself, that's going to go a big way in being actually able to secure that position. And is there any requirements that women need to be able to meet to be able to gain your services, or can any woman walk off the street and come and chat with your team members?
Yeah, look, so we do, anyone walking off the street, we absolutely will. So we provide a pro bono service in that respect. As a small organisation that is absolutely dependent on grants and donations, we don't have any recurrent government funding. We use the fundraising to make sure that if somebody turns up on our doorstep, we're not turning them away. Our referring agencies, there's a fee to refer into us, which is how we generate revenue. Obviously, we can't do everything for free, but if a woman walked in the front door and said, I really need your help, there's no way we're turning her away. So we do quite a bit of pro bono work.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm guessing a lot of the clothing you purchase through grants or from donation from other people as well. How do you stock your cupboards?
No, so that's the other delightful part of the business, is we don't purchase anything new other than in extraordinary circumstances where we're just out of something. But all of our clothing comes through donations. So in our styling services, if you come in for a styling service and you have an hour and a half with one of our stylists, you'll walk away with 2 fully completed outfits for free. So there's no cost for the women. But all of the generous women in WA that donate their pre-loved clothing to us come in through our Subiaco office. They're sorted by our volunteer sorting team. And the very first thing that the sorters are looking for is what's useful for a woman going to an important appointment. So the first cull goes to our boutiques for styling. If it's not suitable for there, it will go over to our Dress for Less shop. And once a month we have a big sale and women can book a slot to come and peruse the shop. There's some fantastic stuff in the shop, and I highly recommend anyone who's not on our socials to link in with us on Instagram or Facebook, because that's where you'll see the very, very much sought after time slots for our once a month sales coming up. We usually do them about once a month, and there's great loot to be had going in there, and knowing that you're shopping for quality garments and not contributing to that great big pile of landfill that is all of the clothes that we dispose of in WA every year.
Yeah, and we will put the links in the show notes to your socials and your website, but that is just Dress for Success WA for people listening?
Yes, Dress for Success Western Australia, yes.
Fantastic. And without giving away any personal details, are you able to speak to any success stories of when a woman's come in and just been fully transformed and you've been amazed by, the changes that she's made in her life?
So having not been here quite long enough to have seen that personally, I will share with you, though, a couple of great stories that I've heard in the time that I've been here. And one of them is one of our clients who we saw in a regional outreach program, who is a woman with a disability who hadn't worked for a long time and was transitioning. So she came to see our stylists, who fully fitted her out with gear to go into interviews with 2 outfits, obviously, And just hearing her story about gaining confidence as she transitioned into being a woman was just amazing. And she's one of those clients that's really benefited from a really generous donor that we have. And the other one that really struck me was a woman who lives in Broome, who was coming down to Perth because her very first grandchild was graduating high school, and Dress for Success kitted her out with 3 outfits for her to go to the graduation evening, the graduation breakfast, and another event at the school, and turn up feeling like a bomb, that her grandson would be super proud of her for being there, rather than just feeling like someone who'd come from the regions and was just showing up. She got to turn up and feel really good about herself. So I think those little success stories, it's hard to put a price on them. It's hard to measure the impact of that. So a lot of our work, when we talk about it, has to be about those personal stories rather than the numbers game that you're quite often used to seeing in report cards.
Yeah, and it must give you a lot of pride when you hear these stories and you see that the impact that the work that you're doing is having on people's lives. It must be very rewarding.
Yeah, I think I've talked about through the 3 key stages of my career, this being the third, about the working in a space where you have an opportunity for good cries, the things that bring tears to your eyes for really good reasons rather than bad reasons. So yes, there's a lot of that here. There's a lot of opportunities for good cries.
Yeah, I'm sure there would be. And what do you hear most from your clients? What are they saying to you when they walk away and they're feeling confident when they're going to a job interview, or they might be dressing them for one of those special moments where they're going to one of their children's graduation?
I think from the testimonials that I read all the time, it's overwhelmingly gratitude. Gratitude that there's a service that's willing to spend the time to make me feel better about myself. That I've walked out feeling confident, I've walked out feeling better than I did when I came in, and that's a win, I think.
Yeah, definitely. That's the end goal, isn't it? You want your client, your customers, to be able to come through your doors and leave in a better position than what they originally walked through the doors in. And I know you mentioned earlier that you primarily work on donations. So if there's people out there listening who might feel like they can contribute, they have clothes they want to offer, how can they connect with Dress for Success and provide their used clothing?
We love the pre-loved clothing. That's a big part of the sustainability agenda that we run, and it is a big part of the service that we're able to offer. What we love as much and probably more is funding, is donations. So if you want to think there's an opportunity to partner with us, is what I really love, because when we find a partnership that works for both parties, I think that kind of win-win is the top of the tree. But donations are also super welcome. Cash donations at any point in time helps this small but mighty organisation tonk along. Reach out to us on our socials, or if you wanted to email us, you can do that at info@dfswesternaustralia.org, and somebody will gratefully pick up your reach out.
And I guess it's the same process if people want to get involved with volunteering to be a part of this organisation as well.
Yeah, also go onto our webpage. Everything's there around donations, partnering, and if you wanted to volunteer, yes.
Well, Natalie, thanks so much for coming in today, having a chat with me. The work that Dress for Success is doing is outstanding. I'm sure it's changing many women's lives and giving them opportunities that otherwise wouldn't have been available to them.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks everyone for tuning in for another episode of Candid Conversations with Shaun. I really hope you enjoyed learning about Dress for Success and the wonderful work they were doing. If you're able to support them in any way, please check out the links in the show notes of how you can get involved. Thanks for tuning in.